Hello and welcome to this edition of Full Circle with South Central Louisiana Human Services Authority. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside. Thank you so much for joining us. And more importantly, very glad to have with us Ms. Amber Cavalier, LAC and LPC with South Central. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Keith. It's an honor to be here to talk about an important topic.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, it's one of those things where I think hurricane preparedness means certain things to certain people. But when it comes to us in our area, it's a whole lot more than just it's hurricane season. There's a lot of stuff we need to kind of look back and think about, right?
Yeah, when I think about hurricane preparedness, I think about the way I was raised and, having that plastic tote and all your things. But I also think that now in the mental health field, we need to look at the recovery and emotional toll we've taken over the years and what that's going to trigger preparing for a new season.
You know, you mentioned the triggers that come with that. We've seen even some small storms last year. Didn't have any hurricanes, right? No named hurricanes that came our way, but even some small storms that we saw caused a great deal of anxiety and stress, especially for some people that are kind of still displaced.
Yes, absolutely. People are displaced. People are still battling homeowners insurance, not having repairs done, and or not having the coverage to face the new season. You just had hail, I believe, in the last 2 weeks.
Yes, yeah, twice now we've had
hmm
hail. And so we've had these big windstorms, these big thunderstorms with hail that we're not really used to, but we have to talk about getting inside and taking care of ourselves. A lot of the same things that we think about with hurricane preparedness and that season. People are also needing to make sure that they're taking care of their own mental health and making sure that they have medications, but not self-medicating.
Absolutely. It's no secret that addiction and mental health symptoms increase after a disaster. And so I think that we first need to acknowledge where we're at. Mindfulness is a huge skill to gain, and being mindful of what are our feelings facing the new season and what we can do to prepare. Um, so when we talk about medications and when we talk about who provides our services and where, we need to start lining those resources up prior to a disaster.
Yeah, and when we talk about meds, we're talking about making sure we have refills, right? And I think one of those recommendations is at least 2 weeks,
Yes.
right?
A lot of times, pharmacies will be able to lift, if there's a natural disaster coming, they'll lift the guidelines
Right.
on getting you that refill before you leave town.
And some of those things are making sure that we're preparing ourselves emotionally. Because if we get our medicines together and we have everything we need, that's one thing we can kind of check off, right? There's a
Yes.
lot of people that have this mental check off or mental checklist, but also maybe a physical checklist.
Yes, absolutely. I call it a wellness plan,
Okay,
and
I like it.
you would have where you have your emergency numbers. You also have your doctor's phone numbers and what pharmacy you use. Because if you're relocating out of town, or if you're bused to a shelter in public housing, then you need that contact information. The shelters a lot of times will coordinate with local agencies to get your medications, but if you don't have that written down, if you don't have that information so they can make sure you have the right dosage. Some people are on injections. So being able to coordinate that really helps them. You also have to consider safe storage of medication.
Right.
Not just can I have my medication, but where am I going to store it if I'm in a public shelter? So lock bags, lock boxes, anything that's easy for you to carry are really important things to have.
And making sure that we've got somebody, let's say we have someone with some memory issues, or we've got someone who their anxiety gets worse during storms, and we know that. Making sure we've got some family members there that are helpful, right?
Absolutely. And if you look at emergency special needs shelters, a lot of times they want a caregiver to come with you because you know a lot about the person you're helping care for, and you can help the staff give them the care they need.
And we need to start thinking about those things right now.
Absolutely. You shouldn't just have your plastic box with things like that in it. You should have your written plan in it, a file folder where you keep your emergency information and numbers in. You should also talk about self care if you feel yourself getting anxious or stressful. And your box should also contain things that help you practice self care if you do have to evacuate or if you are at home. Board games for children if you have those. Uh, a book that you like to read, or meditation things, or if you're a prayerful or spiritual person. What things help you take care of yourself when you're not in your immediate comfortable space?
And for not only those people with medical and mental issues, but for those people who have some substance use issues or substance abuse issues, let's make sure that we're finding out resources in whatever area we're going, right?
Absolutely. One thing positive that came from the COVID era is a lot of things are virtual. And so you can tap into resources no matter where you're at online. But also looking on these websites for AA meetings, NA meetings, um, different churches that may support you. So if you know you're evacuating, look for those things. But also having a list of your sponsor, your support people that you would contact if you struggling with these things, and have conversations with them before you reach that crisis point.
Well, and making sure that you have a way to communicate with them, maybe not necessarily just by phone, by text, or making
Yes.
sure where they're going to be as well.
Yes, we have a lot of technology now that can help us with those things, and different apps that'll work on on Wi-Fi if cell service is down. And so those are some things to consider.
Yeah, some really good information. I appreciate that. You know, it's interesting. We talk about this as it's coming, but it affects people like you and me, you know, licensed professionals. My wife asked me last night, why are you pressing me so hard about the shutters, which is the last of our hurricane recovery? And for me, it's because it's the last thing to check off.
Yes,
I'm a little nervous about it. I don't want a storm coming without my shutters up
yes,
and everything in place. That's what we're talking about. Better preparation, thinking ahead, and knowing those kinds of things that we need to do. Thank you so much for coming to share all this stuff with us today, Amber.
thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. All right, guys, that will do it for this particular segment of Full Circle. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming right here on HTV.